Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Create Smarter podcast. I'm Tyler Pyburn, here with Marisa Uleski from 5 Tool Productions. And today we're talking all about live streaming. It's one of those things I feel like we talk about all the time, right?
All the time, every day, all day, any day.
But that's kind of like what we do.
Yeah, so maybe we should talk about it? I don't know.
Yeah, so we're talking about that. And really, one of the reasons why we're talking about this now is because we came off of an event recently that just had a great live stream component, and you specifically are planning for an event that we've done a few times now that has another great live stream component. So we figured, why not mix the two and two together? But really, some of the frequently asked questions that we get, and really, what are the ways to have a successful live stream? So we were putting together a list of just random things that we said, here's what we want to make sure people know about and are thinking about. So the very first thing that I want to get out there is let people know that your live stream is happening. Because if you just put it up there on the internet, a couple people might find it, but really not everybody. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's really hard to find things just organically, like you were saying. Just it's mostly like, if you happen to open LinkedIn and there's a video or something going on, but you basically need to promote it in a few different ways. The top things that come to mind for me, because I'm so in it, I guess, is email marketing. I send out all of our emails, but then also I get a lot of emails about webinars happening, events that are happening. So you got to send it to the people that are following you and in your email list. So I think that's number one, but also kind of finding creative ways to promote your content and not just, having photos out or graphics out or emails. You have to kind of get creative with it and create some video, which is where we come in. But kind of either creating like a fun promo video that gets people excited or
where does the fun promo live?
Fun promo can live on social primarily. Usually, sometimes it can go in emails as well. But I'm thinking social on your website, like front and center when you open up a page for an event. But social is kind of the main place to be because that's what's going to stop the scroll when people are scrolling through social. But either fun things to get people excited or, tidbits from your event. If you know who you're going to be talking to, or if it's, some parts are pre-recorded, you can drop some content beforehand. So there's lots of ways. But basically you just have to get people excited and inform them, first of all, that your event is happening.
You can't tell people enough that this event is actually going to be taking place. So work out 90, 60, 30, 15, and then 5, 2, and 1 days ahead of time. So 90 days, we might be planting some seeds. Same thing, 60 days, 30 days, continuously doing that and using every single platform that you have access to, your email marketing, whatever marketing channels that you might actually have. But also if it's at an event, making sure that it's on the signage, letting people know that, hey, this is going to be a live area. This is going to be almost like a show. If you're on a campus, having some of those, whether even could be a pinned flyer around campus. Hey, show up at the student center at this time because we're going to be having a live show and we're going to have XYZ guests there. So just making sure that you're getting it out there and letting people know that this is happening, because a lot of times what happens with live streams specifically is that you have that conversation internally so many times and you feel like everybody knows, but nobody actually does.
That was the point that I was going to bring up, is that, if it's your job to promote an event or put on the event, you live it every day. You're in it. So you're like, I don't want to keep sending out emails about this. I don't want to, plaster it everywhere. But the people that you're, promoting to are also consuming lots of other information. They have lots of other events they could go to, things like that. So you have to kind of put it out there, because just because you live it every day doesn't mean that your audience lives it every day.
But we want them to live it every single day. And when they're there, we want them to stay there. So that's the next point is, make something that they'll actually care about and make it so that people would actually want to sit in person and enjoy this as well. Obviously, things like the NFL, I know I use that same thing every single time. The NFL people are going to be going to the games in person, or an event that's happening in Vegas or at a conference center. They're going to be there. But maybe they don't necessarily know about that live stream that's happening with a great speaker that they can sit in and actually watch it. Or if it's on campus. I mean, give an example for you that you've seen. I'm thinking about when you were up in Syracuse, right? Mm-hmm. People were able to see the live stream happening in the student center, right?
Yeah, I think the important thing about that too is even if an event like that is happening on campus, people aren't necessarily coming to watch it in person. So you can watch that while you're still on campus, but watch it remotely and have that be available. And it's something that can, we try to make it draw people in. We do it somewhere on campus where attention can be drawn to it. But it's also important to know that, hey, you don't have to be here for it. You can be somewhere else and you can watch it. And obviously we talk about that all the time with hybrid events. But I think it's interesting to think about, obviously an event like that, we're live streaming to other places across the globe, but also you can consume that remotely while you're there.
Exactly. So you don't have to be there. You can be anywhere. And if you're at a conference or something, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, is where to stream it, because that's part of the question that we always get. So where should I put this? Should I just stream this out on LinkedIn because we're a business and we have a lot of followers on LinkedIn? Should I put it on Facebook because, well, that's where things get streamed? Should I do it on Instagram? It's a question that we get all the time. And I honestly say social can be great, but you got to make sure that you're directing people to that specific things. And you have to remember, social, more often than not, people aren't going to click a link and then be brought to Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram and then sit there on that social channel. Because guess what? There's a lot of things happening on that social channel that they're going to be brought elsewhere. One of my favorite things that we've had this conversation all the time is own the property that you're going to be live streaming it to. So your website, your platform, that people are going to have see all of your branding there. You can have other different announcements there as well. If it's something for like a Giving Day campaign and you have a live stream, you could say, hey, I know you're enjoying this content. Here's where you can give. Or if you're doing it for a professional group, and say, I'm watching this, I hope you're enjoying this live stream. And the host can actually even say, you're watching this on the blank XYZ website. If you want to become a member of this group, here's how you can sign up. It's directly above the video player itself that you're watching, right? Having it on something like that really goes a long way.
Yeah, I think it's important, you mentioned social, to think about where your audience lives, right? Like obviously you need to get their attention somewhere else because they're not going to your website every day to look at your content. So you have to kind of push these things out on social, but drive them back to where they're going to end up giving, where they might be able to dig around and find some more content. If you bring your audience to your website, they're more likely to be like, oh, I'm already here. I'm going to click around and find some other content, or, this will direct me directly to a giving link where I can, make my gift. So it's important to think about, yes, obviously you want to put these things out on social, but that can't be the only place that it lives. And not every social platform is right for live streaming, especially for your audience. Some people will have their audience primarily on Facebook. Some people will have it on Instagram. So it's just interesting to think about, where you can grab people in, but then bring them back to the website at the end of the day.
Don't try to compete for attention if you don't have to, right? That's kind of the way I look at it. And one of the things I wanted to bring this into is that this kind of goes into the idea of simulcasting a little bit too. Like when we're at specifically at events, or even the same events you're talking about, they might be playing the live stream around campus, right? So other people in different parts of the campus center or different schools and colleges underneath the university can see that live stream as well. It's the same thing that goes for a conference that you and I were just at. They had a live stream taking place and they put up TVs in the hallway. So while people were outside and they were walking around from point to point, they could see, oh, there's other content that's taking place. There's other things that are happening. Now, I'll be honest with you. I think they could have leveraged that even more and called people in and said, hey, come join us while you're out in the hallway, while you're eating lunch, and got that message out even more. So I think really lean into the whole idea of simulcasting and not just, it used to be for, I'm sure you probably had it. You didn't have it, actually. I did, because you went to a much larger school than I did. But for graduation, they have the simulcast space because not everybody grandmother and aunt and uncle could fit under the tent. Obviously, they could all fit inside the Carrier Dome, so you don't have those types of issues. But for me, you run into that, so people could then go watch it in another location. So that's kind of the old way of thinking about it. But you can use it from a marketing standpoint to try to bring people in too.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. You mentioned the event that we were just at. It's kind of like meeting your audience where they are. Not everybody's going to sit in that room and watch all day, especially at a conference that's days and days long. So if you are like, oh, you can still watch this on your laptop while you're out in the hall eating lunch, I think that's also an important point to make of like, you don't have to be in the room. Obviously you want to get them there. But if you understand that they're not going to be in that room the entire time, you can give them the content in different ways, in different places.
All right, I want to move on to the next point, and let's talk about the value of a host. Just how important is it to have a host that knows not only, hey, here's what's coming up next, and here's the guest, the person, I want to make sure that I look good on camera, have great big smile on there, but also that knows and understands what's going on behind the scenes, behind the camera, and the person that's calling the shot as well.
Yeah, I think that it's important in general just to, in any job, in anything you're doing, it's important to kind of get your hands into every aspect of it so you kind of understand the full picture, right? So you can apply that to hosting, is that if something, goes wrong, because there's always technical difficulties, your host can kind of move things around on the fly because they understand what's happening in the back end, or they understand what's coming up next. So I think it's important to have an idea of the full picture and have somebody that's driving the bus to do that, so that they can better move forward and host your event.
And we've learned it's not always the person that is, they're really outgoing. Mm-hmm. They're a good host, right? It's having the wherewithal and the knowledge to say, hey, that's going to be do it for this episode. We're going to be back here in 15 minutes. We're going to let them know what's taking place. Or, hey, you're not going to want to go anywhere, and stay tuned because I have Marisa Yaleski coming up in just a few minutes, and she's a phenomenal speaker. So we want to make sure we have that. But having that person that can remember those little things because they might have done it before in their previous life or their current day-to-day job, as you had for your last host for this exact event that we were talking about. Last 2 times, you've had some pretty good ones. That goes a long way. It really does. It's just super helpful, and there's value in having a host that you can rely on and trust, right?
Yeah, it just makes things run smoother, and it will draw people in, like you said, and it just kind of makes the whole event go better, and that is less on the event producer side because it's like, okay, I have a host I can trust. It's not all on me. We can work as a team and get this done together.
Now, the last piece that I want to bring up kind of goes in with this, and I just mentioned like, hey, coming up in just a little bit. Now, this is interesting for the events that are, might stream for a long period of time. And that long period of time could be an hour, honestly, but you might not necessarily be streaming for a full 60 minutes, or, you've done live streams for an entire day, right? You can't leave your audience hanging. You have to let them know when those live streams are coming up, or what to expect when, right?
Yeah, you kind of, I don't know exactly how to say this in the most PC way, I guess, but you kind of have to assume that your audience is a little dumb, like doesn't know what's going on.
They know nothing.
They know nothing. So you have to tell them. They're not going to come back to watch the next show starting at the next top of the hour if you don't tell them to. They might not know that's happening. They might, stumble upon this event or this live stream organically maybe, and they just, are figuring things out as they're going. So you have to tell them, you have to guide them. Okay, we'll be back here next hour to talk about this. We'll be back here at this time to do this. So you kind of have to assume that they don't really know what's going on, and you have to feed them that information to make sure that they continue to consume your content.
No, we always say, produce it like it's a TV show. The same holds true for the way you market it as well. Think about if you're going on regular traditional cable television and you say, okay, I'm going to watch the news at 5. If you go through, you can see, well, it's on at 5 to 5:30. And then the pregame show for the event that's happening is going to be from 5:30 to 6. And then at 6, that's when kickoff is for the game, right? So they show you and tell you everything that's going to happen, because I might say, I don't want to tune in for the news. I don't want to tune in for the pregame show. I just want kickoff, which happens to be at 6:15, right? So it's making sure that we're thinking about those things. So you might not necessarily need to publish your entire granular rundown, but you want to say, hey, at 10 o'clock, we're starting this live stream. It's going to wrap up at 10:45, but don't worry. If you missed it, we're going to do a replay at this time, or we're having this interview coming up at that time. If you don't let people know that, they're going to see, if they do tune in for the show at 10 o'clock, and then all of a sudden it cuts to a screen that just says, hey, we'll be right back. Guess who's not coming right back? The audience.
Womp womp.
They are not there. Yeah, and we should play that sound,
yeah.
too.
Yeah. Like all the cartoon sound effects.
Yeah, all of them.
But you were talking about the news example, too. If you think about, when the news is happening, even during that period of time, 5 to 5:30, right? At 5:28, they're going to say, okay, here are the top leading stories coming up at 5:30. So they're going to tell you, this is why you need to come back and watch, because they're going to drop those little things to tease you to come back.
And they're literally called teasers.
Yes, they are
right?
called teasers.
They're called teasers. We're going to tease what happened in sports. We're going to tease the weather. We're going to tease traffic. Mm-hmm. Say, wow, it's a messy one out there. We're going to get the full 5-day forecast coming up in 17 minutes. Well, of course, then you're going to stick around and see the full 5-day forecast. It's the exact same idea. So producing it like a show, and like you said, assuming your audience knows nothing goes a long way. And I think that's probably the message for this entire podcast.
Yeah, I think
assume they know nothing.
Assume they know nothing. But I think everything that we ever talk about comes back to audience. We talk about events so much, so just you have to keep going back to thinking about who that audience is, where they're going to see your content, what they may or may not know, and how you're going to tell them that information.
I love it, Marisa. Rockitude. She's Marisa Yoluski. I'm Tyler Pyron. We are from 5 Tool Productions. We hope to hear you next time. You'll hear us next time
Right.
on a Create Smarter podcast.